Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to share 6 tips on how to become a better Christian woman.
No, we are not.
No, actually today we're going to talk about what it's like to be a woman in the church.
Yeah. Before we get into that, just really quick, I want to share that we today just put up on our website a section where you can read other people's deconversion stories and you can share your own deconversion story if you're so inclined. That's at bornagainagain.co/stories. And if you follow us on Instagram or on our Facebook group or on our Patreon, you'll see the links we posted there. So yeah, check it out. We're super excited about it. But we're also excited to talk about godly womanhood and what that means.
And today I get to be interviewed.
Yeah. So today, obviously, it's going to be more about your experience, Katie.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on the podcast.
I'm so glad that you agreed to it.
Yeah.
I was really nervous to ask you and was really worried if you were going to say yes or not.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm a big fan.
Great. Yeah, great to have you. Great to have you.
Do you want to get married?
I already am to someone, to you.
Okay, all right. This joke's done. Okay, so I think, all we want to talk about today is how we're sharing the story of how I was affected by Christianity in terms of, how I acted as a woman. And this might not be everybody's story. It might not be everybody's, just how everybody dealt with biblical womanhood or whatever you want to call it. I was looking it up a little bit before, and I feel like it's much like purity culture in a way that biblical womanhood is more of a movement, and I think that it really grasped onto evangelical Christianity or fundamentalism.
Yeah,
and
so you're saying you think that
not every Christian woman experienced the types of things that I experienced.
Sure, yeah.
But if you did, hopefully you can resonate with my story.
Yeah. So what are some of the first things you remember about, what it felt like to try to be a godly Christian woman?
I always, really focus on how the women were very stale. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that I had a problem with fitting in, and I think that it was cultural, but it was also a Christian thing. When I was around other Christian women, I didn't feel like I fit in with them. I felt that I was supposed to behave a certain way, and I didn't want to behave that way, and I also found them kind of boring. Yeah. So it was hard for me to make friends.
Sure. What were those ways that you felt like you needed to behave? How were you, sinning,
I wasn't necessarily sinning, and nobody really tells you how you have to act. I think that a lot of the things that we found kind of troubling with Christianity is, you can say, this affected me, and this affected me, and this affected me. Yeah. But, maybe nobody was telling you that, explicitly, or the Bible didn't really say that. But, it's sort of the messages that you get from people, or just, little glances, or the way that things were modeled. So, for example, women around me were modeling, being very modest, having very much a similar type of style. Yeah. Being a type of way, quieter, not as funny, I guess, not into
vibrant.
The same things. Yeah. I don't know, I feel like when I think back on it, I felt that I needed to be a little bit more toned down. Yeah. I'm not a loud person, and I don't mean that I wanted to be shouting or whatever, but I feel like I was more sarcastic, and when I was sarcastic, I felt like I wasn't supposed to be, or those jokes were inappropriate, or it wasn't welcomed. It wasn't loving to be funny or to joke. I mean, I'm not talking about I was trying to make fun of people, but I don't know. There was this whole feeling of me, as a young adult, young woman, feeling like I was too much. Huh. I had too many emotions. I had too many strong opinions. I, just was a little bit too untamed. I needed to be more submissive. Yeah.
Okay. In general. Not even just to your partner, but just more submissive in your life.
Yes. Yeah. To leadership, to authority, to women who are older than me, to you, to men, everything like that. Yeah. I felt that I wasn't submissive enough, and I always felt bad about it. But I also liked who I was. And so it was a constant battle.
Right. Yeah. I can totally see that. I feel like it's funny I mean, it's not funny, but it's sort of interesting thinking back now on when we were Christian and like knowing you now and seeing your personality really come out and thinking about how like soft you kind of had to be in church circles. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like it's obvious now you were holding back. I feel like you were stifled, like in church environments.
Yeah, I felt really stifled. I think that I remember like talking in a group with our crew leader, and I remember like we were doing some kind of group activity.
When we were on staff or something.
And I don't know what we were doing, but like I wasn't really like giving my opinion or something because I don't know, like I felt like I always overgave my opinion, and I felt that people judged me for it. So, but I remember one time him like saying like, Katie, just give your opinion. And I was like, you're giving me mixed signals. I mean, I didn't say it, but I felt that like I was too opinionated. That as like a staff member, like I said too much.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember us talking about that because we would have staff meetings like every week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And during the week, obviously, you and I would talk about things, but I remember you kind of asking me to like share some stuff and like voice concerns to the other staff members because you felt like every week you had something to say, and you got the vibe that like everyone was like, "Oh, Katie, like come on, Katie, just follow the rules," or like just go with the flow. Everyone else is fine with it.
I forgot
Why is it so
about
hard
that.
for you? Yeah,
I did ask you to share things a lot because it wasn't that I was asking you to necessarily share my opinion, because we talk about things and
like
you
we
also,
held the same opinion.
You agree, yeah. I'm like, can you bring this up instead of me?
Yeah.
I don't seem like a godly woman.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. It's interesting because, like you said, I don't feel like anyone ever talked about that directly. Like, women in the church should be quieter. I mean, obviously the Bible says that, but I don't remember ever hearing that like from a preacher or anything.
No. I don't think that, I think that the Christians today, most of them are pretty modern about like male and female roles. I feel that they believe it's fine for women to have jobs. They don't like care about that or shun them because of it. And they like them to have opinions and they want them to be vocal. But I felt and I sensed my entire life in Christianity that the men were a little bit better than the women. Mm-hmm. Like there was some type of like everybody talks about the patriarchy, and I think it's cultural as well. But like you sense it as a child. Like I think as a child, I preferred to be friends with boys, and I wanted to be a boy. I was really jealous of my brothers. I thought that men were funnier. I thought that they were smarter. I thought, they could do anything. They were more capable of getting like a better job. They could be in the movies. They could be more charming, like everything. I just wanted to be a man. I thought it was so dumb to be a woman, because I felt that people reduced your womanhood down to you like to cook and you wear pink. And, I felt that men could do anything and women had so many things like that they were defined by, and they got made fun of for. If you liked clothes or if you liked cooking, you were like, oh my God, of course, you're so cliche girly, and it's like, why aren't you cliche manly when you like motorcycles? And why does it seem like a better cliche? And why does my cliche seem like it makes negative. Me wimpier and like whatever? So I like went through a long phase of wishing that I was a boy. Yeah. And kind of like, I don't know, I would mope about it.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was from like religion or more from your family, or?
I think it's from everything. Yeah. I think that I feel like it's cultural, it's from family, and it's also from like the way my family was brought up with their roles because of religion. I feel like religion really shapes our culture. Yeah. Especially here in America.
Yeah, for sure. I feel, even if something is cultural here, it's pretty likely that cultural trait was based on some biblical thing, Yeah. America, land of the Christians.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up like not really liking being a girl. I remember we talked, like when we first met, we were talking and you were saying you didn't like really understand the feminist movement, or like that wasn't really interesting to you.
Oh yeah, I was super anti-feminist.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
I don't know. It was weird.
And what do you mean by it? What did you think about it all? So
after I kind of grew up and, you know, I got past the stage of moping about not being a boy, I was like, okay, whatever, I'm a girl. But there were some things I got into I felt that made me more masculine, that made me feel better about myself. Like, I was into, like, metal, and I loved hair metal, and I played, like, an electric guitar, and I learned how to play drums, and I was really, like, trying to get myself out of the stereotype of being a girly girl. And I think that I, like, really did not like women then because of it. I thought that women were boring. I didn't want to hang out with them necessarily. I hated groups of women. I hated when in church you had to, like, separate into, like, male and female Bible studies,
we
whatever.
Do that all the time.
I know, I hated it so much. And I think that comes from my family. My mom would always say how she disliked groups of women that, like, they, I don't know, could get catty or whatever. Yeah. Which I feel like, I don't know if I want to say this, but I feel like it is true that groups of Christian women are sometimes, like, kind of hard to be around. Yeah. But I think that's more of, like, just the types of women that are involved in those circles. Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, I attributed this to all women, that I didn't ever want to hang out with just women. Right. I felt that it was, like, kind of boring. And I think that once I, like, got into the groups and, like, met women, I probably found some that I liked. But, like, on the surface, I didn't like large groups of women. I felt sexist against women. I didn't trust women doctors. I started to notice that if a book was written by a woman and I found out, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. That, like, kind of changed it for me. Like, it didn't mean that I didn't trust the material, but, like, it changed it for me. And when I found out that, I don't know, like, I was going to hear a talk and it was put on by a woman, I was kind of like, oh. Yeah. I don't know. And this is something that I recently realized. When I first came out, I realized that I was sexist against my own sex. Yeah. How weird. Yeah, it was super weird. And that I had placed those judgments on myself. And I had, like, secretly and, like, subconsciously hated myself as a woman. Like, I had thought that I could never be as smart as a man, or, like, never, like, people wouldn't listen to me because women aren't supposed to teach, right? They're supposed to be submissive and all of that. I mean, that Bible verse, I think it's in 2 Timothy about, you know, women should not teach the men and all of that. And, like, they should be submissive to their husbands. They should sit quietly in the church. I never thought that I was a submissive woman. I never thought that those things were necessarily good, but I'm coming to realize they affected me subconsciously, and I never would have noticed that they were affecting me as a Christian. Yeah. But now, coming out, I realized that I really didn't like women. Yeah, that's wild. So it sounds like it kind of took you coming out of Christianity to allow yourself to, like, consider that maybe women aren't worse than men. Yes. Because, like, biblically, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I feel like biblically women are less than men. Like, they say women slaves are worth less than male slaves, and, you know, women shouldn't teach in the church, and that's awful and it's sexist. But, like, you were a Christian and you believed the Bible, and so, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense how you couldn't really see the value in your own womanhood. Yeah. Until you dropped that, like, overarching biblical belief that was shaping everything else about you. Mm-hmm. I think it's like, no Christian would say that women are less than men. And I know that, like, if you're a Christian, God loves everyone. Well, some Christians would, but, like, maybe not the ones we hung out with. But, like, God loves everyone, you know. He loves women, he loves men for different reasons. Men and women have different roles, whatever. But, like, I think it's damaging, even if you say that in church and say that in your Bible studies, to be reading a book that's so clearly sexist. Yeah. Because you're getting both messages. You're getting, God loves women and women are great, but you're also getting, like, those weird verses. Right. And nobody in church is going to tell you, oh, we don't, you know, use those verses anymore, even though they might be thinking in their head those verses are, like, from the past. Yeah. Those are, like, cultural, like, they go with what these people believed in 2,000 years ago. But, like, it's still, it's really confusing to be a young adult and you really want to take your faith seriously. You're reading your Bible all the time. It's confusing to separate out parts, you know, like I feel like there's a point where you don't really understand what do you mean like this was part of their culture.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Because Christianity becomes a culture.
Yeah. Totally. Did you feel like your view of womanhood or view of yourself as a woman affected our relationship? Like when we started dating and then got married?
I do now, looking back.
Yeah. But maybe not at the time.
I didn't think it was at the time. I think that I had a lot of guilt and shame about not being the most perfect godly wife for you.
Yeah, in your mind, what was, like, where were you falling short, you know?
I compared myself to women a lot, and I don't know, let me try to think. I feel like all of it was so subtle.
Yeah.
I would think like, oh, maybe it would be better for Joe if he was just married to a woman who was, I don't know, a better follower of Christ, who like listened to her husband better, who was so aligned like with, you know, being so into Jesus. I don't know, it's hard because I really did love God and I loved being a follower of Christ, and I felt like that it was so important to me to be sharing my faith, and like it was a huge part of my life, but I felt like I was not doing it well enough ever. Yeah. Like I felt like I could have been doing it better. And I felt when I was really emotional or depressed or sad that I was a bad Christian wife. Like I shouldn't have had any emotions.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't be angry ever. That's an emotion of a man. Or like I shouldn't have so many strong opinions. Mm-hmm. Like I should just be blander. But it was like a struggle because like, I'm like, that's not how I was.
Yeah. So you're kind of like fighting with yourself.
It's hard to describe it now. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I think that I just didn't think that I was a perfect Christian. Yeah. And I felt that I fell short a lot, and I like had questions, and I would be opinionated, or I did like get angry or say like spicy things to people. Mm-hmm. And I felt that you could have had someone who was like just like blander.
Yeah.
Better.
More like soft and moldable. Yeah. Well, that's really weird. It's weird thinking about you back then having that internal struggle. And I feel like I mourn that had to happen during that time, because it's like you're at war with yourself, you know, mm-hmm. and it's obviously going to be hard for us both to relate, when we're having these kind of internal battles with each other all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks. It's weird. Did you feel like that, you know, the typical like Christian wife is supposed to be really submissive to the husband? How did that play out for you?
I thought that was true. My mom was submissive to my dad. They had very like defined roles. My dad worked. My mom was a homemaker. She stayed home, took care of the kids, and cooked and cleaned the house and everything. And she was quieter, and like they didn't have fights about being submissive or who was in charge or anything, but it just like it seemed to work like that. Like mm-hmm. he was the head of the family. And so I felt that I learned some of those traits, but also I always had strong opinions that I thought that I got from my dad. And it was weird. You never made me be too submissive to you or anything. Like you never like really, I don't feel like you cared about it as much.
Yeah.
Did you?
I didn't care about it that much. I think it always felt like such a weak move if I were to be like, Katie, you need to be submissive to me in this moment. You know, like I want to like inspire you to feel happy that you can like follow my lead.
Because if you were really like manly enough, I would follow you. Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think I recognized that like that we were pretty much equals, at least from my perspective. You know, I never felt like I like was higher up than you on the totem pole in terms mm-hmm. of like making decisions. You know, we did everything together.
Yes, I thought so too. I thought that we like had a really good balance in our marriage.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that I notice now that like we're so much better at is that I don't have like, there's no struggle with me voicing my opinions anymore. Like, I don't feel that I am being too much ever, like, like, you know, because I know that you know who I am now, and you accept it. And that doesn't mean that I, like, am overpowering you, but you, like, just, that I don't have to be cookie cutter or something, that we're not fulfilling this one type of relationship, which we are called to be. Like, relationships can be anything, you know what I mean? And they're just, all you are is two humans together. Like, you don't have to fill, like, these set out specific roles that for your life. You know, just be your human self, and then if you're good at working together, then
great.
Get together.
Yeah, what a novel idea. Just two humans expressing each other equally in a relationship.
I know, wow.
When you first started having doubts, like at that Bible study that we went to, and I remember you were telling me in the car afterward that you were having some, like, struggles and stuff, kind of the first time you voiced your opinion about what was going on. Do you feel like you hesitated to share that with me? Like, were you feeling those things before but didn't share because of your place as a woman, or did it come out naturally?
Well, it didn't come out naturally, but it's hard for me to hide anything. So I did say it pretty soon after I felt it. But I did feel horrible that I was, like, potentially ruining your faith. And I did feel that, of course, it was me, like, the woman. Because, you know, we joke about it all the time, but, like, the very first story in the Bible about how, you know, Eve, she's the one who really, like, listened to the serpent and ate the fruit first, and then she gave it to Adam. Like, I think that is used in churches a lot, like, but, like, I don't know, like, it's never overtly, but, like,
but used for what?
Like, that women are the temptress.
Oh, yeah.
That she tempts, you know, and everything is very, like, you know, on the down low with everything, all this programming, the stuff that really messes you up is, like, very hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yes, because, like, you can say, I felt this, and then the Christian is like, but it doesn't say that in the Bible. And I'm like, but so I learned it from you guys. So, but, I think, like, I felt that I was a temptress. I wasn't a temptress. Like, some people struggle with, they said that people called them temptress in terms of, like, their sexuality. And, like, if they were into boys, like, that was bad because, like, women shouldn't be into boys or pursuing the men. But I felt that I was a temptress in terms of, like, my mind and what I, like, told you to do, you know, like, but that people thought that I had this perception that if I voiced my opinion, it would seem that I was leading the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you to do this and I affect you. But in a normal relationship, that everybody should be accountable for what they decide to do. And you should feel free to share your opinion. And then they can take it or leave it. I mean, you don't want to do that to strangers, but, like, if you're in a relationship or a friendship with someone, like, you should be able to voice your opinion, and they should be able to not take it personally and do whatever they want with that. Like, agree, disagree, have a conversation. You know what I mean? But, like, I felt that I was, like, mind temptress. I think because of, that's probably what it is, because of everything, how I always said that I'm so opinionated, whatever.
I remember you sharing that about my family. Like, when we were moving to Portland, you felt a lot of guilt that like, my family would resent you for, like, taking me away from them in our hometown. Yeah,
because you met me and you moved away from home and then you stopped being Christian. Like, I feel, like, responsible in a way because that is so embedded in me that, like, the woman, you know, is bad. She did it, whatever. Ooh, you know what? Like, this verse goes along with this. I need to read a Bible verse right now.
You love reading Bible verses
so
much.
Let me read this one. 1 Timothy 2:11-15. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control.
What in the world? Wait, does that mean that, like, if you have a baby, then...
Yeah, you're redeemed by your child.
Wait, so what did you... This is kind of going back, I guess, in our timeline of this episode, but when you were a Christian, what did you think when you read that?
Because
I'm sure you read it.
I was sexist.
So you agreed?
Yes.
Dang.
I was sexist against women.
Yeah.
I feel like I did really think that the man was the head, and I thought that you needed a head of a relationship. I thought that if you didn't have a head, that the marriage would be crazy.
Yeah. So like to you, the ideal relationship, one person is kind of in charge and the other one is a little bit a follower. And
it was easy too, because, we talk about this hierarchy. There's like God the Father, Jesus, like the man is over the wife, and then the family, right? Mm-hmm. And it was easy for me to model, there was a perfect model of me submitting to you because I was like submitting to Christ, right? So I think that I was already in a place of submissiveness, and it was like it was a daily practice to be that way. So I just like translated it into being a wife. Yeah. But it was different because you're a real person and I actually have to talk to you and you answer back to me. Yeah. So like not that like that we were fighting, but like in a regular played out relationship, I saw you as a friend. Yeah. And in a friendship, we can both say what we think. Yeah. And we don't have to submit. Yeah. So like intellectually, you kind of agreed with what the Bible said, but like practically in our actual relationship, you like couldn't actually live that way. No. I think it was weird. I applied it to different parts of my life. Like I applied it to other women. I applied it to what I thought of like women teachers or women authors or women speakers and doctors. Yeah. But for my own self, I was like, no, I'm not going to be submissive. But like, I thought that you should be. It was so strange. That's weird. So that's where the guilt probably came in, is like, you thought that ideally you should be that way, but you just couldn't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, how bizarre. I'm glad you weren't, because if you were, then we might still be Christian. Oh yeah. Maybe. We might be running a Christian podcast called Born Again. Yeah. No, but that's interesting, because in the car, I was really scared to tell you about that. And you were upset when I told you. The night that you told me you had doubts from a Bible study. Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, we can maybe talk about this more next week, but yeah, I mean, I feel like it was really hard for me to not have some resentment when you told me your doubts, because I'm like, ugh, like now this is something I have to think about, Now I have to look into this. Yeah, yeah. And I've told you this a lot, but it's weird because I feel like I appreciate the parts of you now that are like, in quotes, ungodly. Whereas when we were Christian, they were kind of like a hassle. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I feel like way more understood and whole now. Yeah. Well, I like see you more as a whole person, and you seem like you're more whole and less at conflict with yourself. Mm-hmm. So as we were leaving our faith, was there a time when you kind of like started to change your mind about that stuff? Yeah. Or are you still super sexist against yourself? Oh, yes, I am. The first time I noticed was in Portland. I feel like I remember sitting outside on our porch in our second apartment there and thinking, oh my gosh, I've been sexist to women my whole life. Yeah. And that's why when I think about going to the doctor, I keep saying that. Like, I think about reading a book. Like, I don't want it to be a woman. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm like, why? Like, that's so stupid. And then I was like, well, maybe because I've been reading a sexist book my whole life. Yeah. And like, been around women whose roles were, I'm the feminine role, and my place is in the home, under my husband. Yeah. I think in Portland, I finally learned to love myself as a woman. Mm-hmm. I finally just accepted that, hey, it's okay to be a woman. I remember, I think I wrote an Instagram caption about it. Like, I'm just happy to be what I am. Yeah. I'm like I don't feel that I'm better because I'm a woman, and I don't feel I'm less because I'm a woman. I'm just like totally fine being who I am. I'm happy who I am. Yeah. And it felt so great. Right. So great. Yeah. Do you feel like there was anything that you like did or read or experienced, or a person you met that like helped you to get to that place? Yeah, I think that I think moving away from home changed everything. Like, we met people who weren't Christian, who were amazing. And we met other people like who were living different lives, and realized that like, how can these people go to hell? I think that was a big thing. But I met women for the first time who I was like, wow, you're actually you could be a role model to me.
Yeah.
And I'd never met women who I looked up to like that. I did have women in my life that I respected and I did like, but I never wanted to be them.
Right.
And this was the first time I actually met women that I wanted to be like. And that was so cool.
Yeah.
I felt like finally proud to be a woman and like, wow, there are women that are like, I don't know, that are amazing. And that's so stupid to say. It sounds dumb. Of course there's so many women that are amazing. Now that I'm here, I've met so many other women that I want to be like. And I've seen women like doing things that are inspiring. And I don't know, I felt that I was like blocked from that in some way. Like I couldn't see it before.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Cause like you said, moving away from our hometown, like broke us out of so many weird thought patterns that we had. But like where we grew up, I feel like it was kind of expected that the man was the head of the household. It was like such an old school place where we grew up in the Midwest. And like your family had very traditional family values where the dad was the one who made money and worked and the mom was home and took care of the house and the dad was the leader and the mom was a follower. And I feel like that was kind of accepted, like in Christian circles for sure. But then even outside of the church, it kind of seemed like that it wouldn't be unusual in any way for that to be the way a family is organized.
But your family wasn't like that.
Well, my family was interesting because my mom is the breadwinner. She's the one who had their own business and stuff. And my dad was the one who stayed home and took care of us. But I specifically remember one night when I was probably like 12 or something, my mom called my family into the kitchen and was like, hey, and it's funny, my mom like called us in there, but she was like, hey, your dad and we want to talk to you about something. And she was saying, we like recently read this book as part of our Bible study. And I'm feeling really convicted because as the Bible says, the woman should be submissive to the man. And so your father and I have talked about it. And from here on out, I'm going to be more submissive. And dad is the one who has the final say when we make decisions about, what we're doing as a family or where we go on vacation or what we spend our money on. She said like, I haven't been very submissive and I'm going to start being submissive now, which if you knew my family is so bizarre, because my mom's like such a go-getter powerhouse, like super opinionated, really strong and forward. And my dad's a lot more just like go with the flow and that kind of a thing. So like, it doesn't make sense. And they were trying to force their relationship into
this box,
the biblical mold. That like they definitely didn't fit. And that didn't end up working out anyways. Like I don't think they, even when I was 12, I remember like a month later noticing they had just gone back to exactly how they were. And I was like, oh yeah,
well,
that makes sense.
Old habits die hard, what I'm saying?
But like, so all that to be said, it kind of makes sense that that's how you viewed yourself and that's how you viewed relationship. And that's what you thought about women, because I feel like the environment that we were in cultivated that belief.
Yeah. Environment is huge. I think it's like one of the biggest, things that kind of affected how I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Changing our environment helped us to change so much about who we were as people.
Yeah. I feel like that's pretty common.
Yeah. But so, as you stand now, what do you like about being a woman?
That's a good question. I don't know what I like about being a woman, but what I think how I feel now is that I don't care what I am,
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't
That's
care
good.
if you're a man or a woman. I just like certain parts about me that maybe could have been the case if I was a man.
Yeah.
But I just like me, regardless of sex.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I never thought that was possible. I feel like in the church, I thought that I just needed to accept like myself as like a godly woman and all of her submissiveness and everything, in my role. Yeah. And now I don't care what my role is. I just like who I am.
Such a freedom.
Yeah. I feel really free to like not really necessarily think about gender at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I do identify as a woman, like still, but I feel like I don't need to judge myself by that. I'm a woman, so I need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever. But
That's amazing. I feel like that leaves the door open for that being something you can like explore and grow into.
Yeah.
In the same way that I'm like so excited that I can explore and grow into my own masculinity and kind of figure out for myself what that means. Now we're starting from like a blank slate, as opposed to starting from this place that the Bible talks about where the woman is weak and the man is strong, and, you know, basing everything based on that.
I recently realized that this view of myself as a woman was still affecting me. And I thought that it was all sort of like healed up and all gone. But it came out when we were doing this podcast. Like, I started thinking about it, because I feel that sometimes I think like, no, who's going to listen to me when I'm talking right now? I think when we listen back, we record the podcast and then we listen back, and I like get so into that imposter syndrome. And I think like, are men going to listen to me talk on this podcast?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a woman and I'm not as smart as men, and I'm not as good at talking as men, or I don't have as good of ideas as men. And I recently realized that I was thinking that. I wasn't thinking it in a way that I was conscious of it, but it like kind of popped up, and that's what sort of made us talk about doing this episode about, you know, being a woman or whatever in Christ.
Yeah.
And I still have that, like, where I feel that I can teach women and like women can listen to me, but I feel really insecure around men.
Yeah.
And like, it's so stupid. Like, I get scared that a man is going to listen to an episode of a podcast, hear me say something, and be like, ugh, she's a woman.
Dang.
She doesn't know what she's talking about, and then like dismiss me as a person.
So much pressure on you. Dang, that's crazy. That's such a lingering effect of it.
Yeah, I want to work through that. And I think it's really good that I know that now, because before I was just like sort of like living my life like that was like undercover, you know?
It was controlling you subconsciously.
It was controlling me, yeah.
Right. So that awareness is good. But it also is like, great, another thing to throw in the old pile of like garbage I need to unlearn.
Yeah, dang it.
Cool.
Well, I have a treat for you. I'd love to end this episode with a reading from a blog that I found and maybe you know about. It's called The Transformed Wife.
Oh my God.
And if you'd like a good spiking and like to get really triggered, I suggest you go over there, The Transformed Wife, and read it. I was researching a little bit before this episode because, wouldn't you know it, it's really cool. I've like forgotten a lot of things about my past life in Christianity, which is great because that means I'm moving forward. Yeah. But like sometimes I'll read something or someone will post something on the group and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot I thought like that. Right. So I was watching a lot of Girl Defined, and I remembered this blog, The Transformed Wife. I've done so many ads for it now. I found this article. It says, men are attracted to women who are feminine, cheerful, and good cooks. Oh. So
when was this written? 1951?
September 10th. 2019, so just a couple days ago now.
Yikes.
All right. So in the beginning of this, she talks about somebody on Twitter who she knows. Prometheus. They tweeted this recently, in quotes. Steps for women looking to get engaged. Number 1, wear a nice sundress. 2, smile a lot. 3, carry a plate of bacon. 4, when people mention the bacon, say, yes, I made it. Men will instantly rate you far above the vast majority of modern women. This ain't rocket science. It's that simple. I thought that this was a joke, and I thought that she was going to comment on this and say something like, this is terrible. But let's see what she says next. Okay, so now this is her writing. Most men aren't that complicated. Sorry, men. Women are much more complicated because we tend to be led by our emotions and feelings, which change frequently. I know there are many young women who would love to be married, so this is great advice for you.
I just want to say, it sounds like she is in the same place you were in when you were like a little kid, and she like hates her own gender.
I feel like there's probably something deep down inside that does hate it.
Yeah, I mean, she's saying like, we're women, so we're easily led astray by our emotions and feelings.
Many women don't dress feminine anymore. Most wear leggings all the time, which are not feminine. Everywhere I go, women are wearing leggings. On a few women, they are very sexy since they outline the body parts clearly. On other women, they are not attractive at all. Few women have perfect bodies. Women, leggings are not feminine, nor modest in the least. A pretty sundress or skirt are much more feminine and attractive to men.
God, I don't even know what to say.
Okay, I know. Men worldwide have been asked what they find most attractive in a woman, and almost all of them respond, a woman who is cheerful.
When? What is that study?
Cheerfulness comes from having a thankful heart. You can't be cheerful if you aren't thankful. Instead of looking at what you lack in life, look at all the good in life. Dwell on the lovely and the good. Read uplifting books. Be in the Word daily and meditate upon it. Smile when you walk by people and learn to be friendly. Look in their eyes and ask them how they are doing. Love people. And then it talks about how many women don't cook nowadays and you need to learn how to cook.
Gosh.
But this is so funny. This is the thing. Being cheerful.
Yeah. I was just going to say.
If I could describe the way you needed to be as a woman using a color, I would say light pink. That, to me, for some reason, whenever I think about what a Christian woman is, before I can think of any words, I think of that color.
Yeah.
Light pink.
I can see that.
And I don't mean to offend anyone if they like that color, light pink, but for me, that color is like everything Christian biblical womanhood.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like I was never kind enough, cheerful enough, gracious enough, thankful enough, and I was never cooking you bacon.
I know. Seeing you like smile in that weird fake creepy smile way is scaring me.
Good.
Because you look like a Christian woman.
Good. So I hope you liked that reading. I love reading from this blog. It's just like, I feel like it reminds me and puts things in perspective a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, if you've felt any of the ways that I have felt, message us. And if you have like better ways of describing how you felt, let me know, because sometimes it's difficult to describe like all of the kind of subconscious conditioning that happened around being a woman and why I hated it and all of that. So
it's all really subtle.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. And next week
we're talking about godly manhood.
Yeah.
So we get to check back in for that.
We'll talk to Joe.
I get to be in the hot seat. All right. Well, until next week then, have a good week and we'll talk to you then.